All right, welcome to Hope Church this morning. We're going to give those coming in just a second to get in the door, and we're going to start with a big announcement. Everybody should have gotten a pre-filled communion coming in the door. If you did not, David is standing back here holding them up, because today is a special day. We start our VBS Sundays this week. So this Sunday and next Sunday, we will be over on the other side of the church for the entire service. So there will be no children coming around serving communion today. But kids, this is your chance. Any age, get up and head all the way on over to 2.0 where the refrigerators are over there. Aaliyah and Janie are leading the way. Y'all head on over now. We've got a big day planned. Ava, yeah, grab Ezra. Grab Ezra and go.
Yeah.
All right, welcome to Hope Church. I'm going to turn it over to the band now.
All right. I'll say it again. Good morning, Hope Church. Glad to have you all here this morning. Hope we can get your week started off to a great start, and you'll be singing these songs for the rest of the week. Hope you get some sort of encouragement today from something maybe that's said or done today. If you're new here, it's your first visit, we welcome you, and we hope that you can say that you have found your spot. We're going to get started off this morning. We're going to sing a little bit of an old one. Everybody will know it, but we're going to speed it up just a little bit. So y'all sing along with us, okay?
Nothing but the traveler far from home. I get lost, but I press on. There's a mansion, streets of gold, where I belong. Yes, there's a day coming soon where the old will be made new, and heaven's glory shines like the morning before our eyes. Sing it with me. When we all see Jesus, when we all see Jesus, no more sickness, no more madness, no more pain. When we all see Jesus face to face, then we will sing the angel voices, and there will be a great rejoicing. Holy, holy, oh worthy, worthy is the Lamb. When we all see Jesus, when we all see Jesus, no more sickness, no more madness, no more pain. When we all see Jesus face to face, when we all see Jesus face to face.
This time is set aside for communion. If there's anyone that hasn't gotten the communion, be right there in front of the sound booth. Maybe Randy or David can get it to you if you don't have it. At this time, we're going to ask Brother Ricky if he will come and lead us in prayer for the communion.
never walk out on me. I have no reason to doubt you. Who you have been, you'll always be. And though the future's still unfolding, everything I've seen, how could I not believe? You are a promise keeper, your word will never fail. My heart can trust you, Jesus, I won't be overwhelmed. My eyes are gonna see miracles and victories. You are a promise keeper, and your word will never fail. You will return all that's been stolen. There's nothing that you can't redeem. And though the story's still unfolding, with everything I've seen, how can I not believe? You are a promise keeper, your word will never fail. My heart can trust you, Jesus, I won't be overwhelmed. 'Cause my eyes are gonna see miracles and victory. You are a promise keeper, and your word will never fail. I know your word will never fail. I see your goodness in the land of the living. I'll see your goodness right here, right now. You know the ending before the beginning. I know that you have worked all things out. I'll see your goodness in the land of the living. I'll see your goodness right here, right now. I know you know the ending before the beginning. I know that you have worked all things out. You are a promise keeper, your word will never fail. My heart can trust you, Jesus, I won't be overwhelmed. 'Cause my eyes are gonna see miracles and victories. You are a promise keeper, your word will never fail. I'll see your goodness in the land of the living. I'll see your goodness right here, right now. You know the ending before the beginning. I know that you have worked all things out. I'll see your goodness in the land of the living. I'll see your goodness right here, right now. You know the ending before the beginning.
We're gonna bring it back to an old hymn to end our worship service today. Y'all, let's stand up while we do this song. This is a jumping around song. Oh, would you be free from the burden of sin? There's power in the blood, power in the blood. Would your evil victory win? There's wonderful power in the blood. Oh, there's power, power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. Would you be free from your passion and pride? There's power in the blood, power in the blood. Come for a cleansing through Calvary's tide. There's wonderful power in the blood. Oh, there is power, power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. Would you do service for Jesus your King? There's power in the blood, power in the blood. Would you live daily His praises to sing? There's wonderful power in the blood. Oh, there is power, power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the blood of the Lamb. There is power, power, wonder-working power in the precious blood of the Lamb. In the precious blood of the Lamb.
Thank you. You all sounded great. Jim, you're going to need a nap this afternoon. Great job, everybody. Great job. And this, is it Friday night? Yeah, okay. This Friday night, there will be a Narcan training here from 6 to 8. And I've also been told to come hungry, that there will be food there. So this Friday night, 6 to 8, Narcan training. I don't think we have any other announcements at this time, so let's take the next 10 minutes, meet and greet, find somebody to talk to you hadn't seen, and we'll meet back in about 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate those of you who are here in the room, and we've got so many little ones on the other end. And Vacation Bible School is just an amazing event here. And Rachel and Rita and Sarah and Miss Debbie, so many people put so much work into this particular week. And so thank you so much for having your kids here. They're going to learn a little bit and have a good time. Thank you for joining us on YouTube, as many of you do. And we know several folks, again, are out and about. Vacation season is slowly coming to an end. And we also have several folks playing different sorts of ball, softball, baseball. I don't want to mention who's there, but we have so many representatives from Hope Church who are sort of around the state here playing in state championships. And so we're so excited for them and hope that things go well. And we know that they'll be a good representative of Hickman County and of Hope Church. I think it would be a truthful thing to say that we all have a desire to be known for something. You probably have a desire, this innate thing, and maybe it comes out of an ability that you have. It comes out of how you were raised. It comes from your education. But we all have a desire to be known for something. And I dare say that something, whatever it may be, that we want to be known for is probably a positive thing, right? And we have different spheres of influence that might dictate what we want to be known for. In my family, I'd like to be known as a good daddy. I'd like to be known that I was a father who certainly didn't always get it right. You can ask 3 of them and they'll tell you that I didn't. But at least at the end of the day, a daddy who cared and loved unconditionally. So I'd like to be known for that. So when somebody's standing over my casket at the end of my days here, I'd like for them to be able to say, and here's the key, and say it truthfully, that Devin was a good dad. The legacy that he left his children wasn't one of financial wealth, wasn't one of a lot of possessions, but it was of a lot of memories of Daddy was there and did the best he could. I'd like to be known as a good husband. Haven't always been. My actions have not always shown that. But 30 plus years later, somehow she hung in there with me. And so if I happen to breathe my last before she does, I want her to be able to faithfully and truthfully say that even though he messed up and she had to weather a lot of storms because of me, that I loved her and that I tried. I think I'd like to be known as a hard worker, that I wasn't lazy, that I got that honest from my daddy, from my mama, from my grandparents, a long line of hard workers, of people who didn't just lay around looking for handouts when they could do better. Well, I'd like to be known for that. I'd like to be known in my circle of friends as somebody who was fun, somebody who was there when they needed me, someone who was unconditional with them. So I say all that to say, I dare say that you guys feel the same. If you're a mom, if you're a dad, if you're an aunt, if you're an uncle, at your work, at your play, at whatever, we all want to be known for what I would consider to be good things. Now, there are some things, and it may be due to our actions, sometimes we're not known for good things. And it's because we've made mistakes, and sometimes 1 or 2 mistakes can overshadow a lot of good. We know this. You almost could take a look at any situation, to where a good person maybe fell into a bad group of folks, not a bad group of folks, but a group of folks who are making bad decisions. I believe good people make bad decisions. Not bad people, but they just have poor timing. And they're, from time to time, especially oftentimes in a small town, and some of us can relate to this, you will be known for the rest of your life because of a mistake or 2 that you made. even though you repented of that, even though you made restitution if it was possible, even though you turned the other leaf, even though you prove in your life that you are a different person, there will always be those who will whisper, yeah, but they. Yes, but I remember when. Now, you can't control that, nor should you worry about that. Because if you've brought that before God, He's forgiven you, you move forward and don't worry about it. But we will all be known for something, regardless of how much we may try or not. But when we fall short, and I have, maybe you have too, I can't speak for you, but there have been times to where in my life I wanted to be known for a certain thing. I wanted to be thought of in a certain way. And what that was going to require from me was that I would have to manage an image that really wasn't mine. That I would have to create this false Devin because I wanted you to see me in a certain light or in a certain way that I really wasn't. And so what that requires from me, especially now in this age of social media, is a great deal of energy to put forth this imaginary Devin, to put forth this Devin that's not real, but it's the Devin that I want you to think Devin is. This imaginary person. And so what that might require is me posting a lot of stuff on Instagram of me smiling and leaning against new cars and private jets or all these fancy places that I'm eating out, and I create this illusion of who Devin is. Now, there are some people in Devin's inner circle who knows that the good Lord knows he can't afford any of that stuff, but he wants you to think that he's this high roller. He's an athlete, he lives like an athlete or a rapper or an actor or a politician, whatever. So it takes a great deal of work for me to do that. It takes a great deal of energy for me to create this facade for you to believe about me. So when I don't measure up to that, if I'm not getting enough likes, if I'm not getting enough of hearts, of attaboys, and man, I wished I had your life, and man, it must be amazing to live that way. It must be something to have such a great marriage because all you post is smoochy, smoochy, smoochy. We get sick of seeing it. You must be great. Your kids, I can't imagine they're straight A's and always make the all-star team. You're taking these amazing vacations. You never drive a vehicle that's more than 6 months old. Wow, I can't imagine. And 9 times out of 10, and you follow them, and I do too. I've started following a lot of goats and miniature cows, but that's a whole different thing because they're fun to watch. And I don't really get jealous of them. So because I found myself on Instagram getting jealous of some of you maybe. I'm like, golly, it's amazing. So I just started following animals, and because they don't anyway. But some of you maybe have tried to create. I'm not asking you to raise your hand, but some of you may understand this process that I'm talking about. Your life isn't really as glitzy and as glamorous as it seems to be because you sat on that side of that mountain and took 74 pictures before you got the lighting just right to make everybody think it was a one shot, right? I shouldn't say we're doing our kids a disservice, but social media itself is doing especially our kids and our teenagers a disservice because they think that that's real life, and it's not. Real life doesn't give you 126 different chances to make just the right picture with the right shadowing. That's not how it works. But you see, we don't see all that. Our kids and our teenagers, they don't see all of that manipulation behind the picture. I proposed to Angie at the Centerville Swimming Pool Park on a picnic table. We didn't make a picture of that. Now, I remember it. Hope you remember it. But anymore, if a proposal, just the proposal picture is staged. I'm not saying you're wrong for doing it. Please understand. I'm just saying that now everything has to be exactly perfect without any flaws. And the fact of the matter is that we all have flaws. We all have scars, and we all have zits, and we all have bruises, and we all have this stuff. And we can edit them as much as we want and put them through all the different filters. But at the end of the day, you are who you are. And it takes a great deal of energy to put forth this imaginary you. Have you ever met someone? I know you have. I have too. You've seen what their profile picture looks like. Okay, a nice-looking guy, nice-looking gal, clear complexion, no wrinkles, all that. And you don't raise your hand. And you meet them for the first time, and you're like, wait a minute, this ain't you. Or this picture was made when you were 25 and you're not. And you scratch your head and you double check and you're, well, that's who it says there, and they're telling me this is who they are, but that's not or you've met someone who you perceived they were super, super nice and kind and friendly, and then you went out to eat with them, and the way they treated the servers were the exact opposite. You ever had that experience? You're like, wait a minute, you are selling a false bill of goods because this ain't who you are. What I see every time I flip open my phone, that ain't you. I've probably been guilty of that as well. And so then we become super, super disappointed in what we thought was, but ain't. For you northern folks, that means not. For what we thought was, it's not. And that's disappointing, isn't it? I mean, it really is. There are business deals that you go into these business deals and you've been promised a certain thing, and this is how it's going to be, and this is how it's going to turn out, or a contractor said they're going to build you something, they tell you, and at the end of the deal, you're like, wait a minute, this ain't what that looks like. They created this imaginary situation. Some of us are afraid to be fully known. Let's just be honest. Adam and Eve were naked, not naked, they were naked, southern again. But they didn't know that that's what they were. They didn't know that's what they were because God didn't tell them, and it didn't matter. Can you imagine in a world where it didn't matter to be naked? It didn't matter until they sinned. And then all of a sudden, man's desire to be fully known went away. Because now all of a sudden we have things to hide. They hid God as if he didn't know. Where are you at? They hid from their true self. And part of the reason why we tend to hide our true selves is because we're afraid that someone or someone's, plural, may not like me anymore if they find out that I'm not that way. Or they may not like me anymore if they find out this about me. I'll never forget as long as I live till the day that I die. I have a friend who early on in his life, it was a terribly unfortunate situation. He was a part of a larger group of young boys who had been sexually abused in our community. And so I was with my buddy, and we were teenagers, and we were doing whatever we were doing. This news had broke, and everyone began hearing about the situation. And I'll never forget, one day he looked at me, he said, are you still going to be my friend? And even at 15 years old, I'm like, what do you mean am I still going to be your friend? Of course I'm still going to be. Why would I not be your friend? That had nothing, you didn't, this is not something that you chose. It's not your fault. And it led to a whole big thing and a trial, and it was terrible. Will you still be my friend? And even at that age, I tried to be unconditional. Yeah, I'm going to be your friend. That doesn't change anything at all. Some of you understand those emotions and those feelings because there's one part of you that wants to come clean to somebody. There's one part of you that has this something that's been buried and stuffed away for decades perhaps. And you so desperately want to tell someone, but you are afraid. And I'm not minimalizing this, and nor am I trying to cause you to feel bad about it. I understand. You're afraid that if you come clean, drop your imaginary self and become transparent, even if it's just to one person. I'm not saying to get up and blast it to everybody. That's not what I'm saying or condoning. That you shouldn't. I'm not saying to put it on your social media. I'm not saying to do that. But there are so many of you who are sitting here right now who deep down inside say, I gotta tell somebody. But you won't or don't because you're afraid of how they may react. Let me tell you something that may break your heart, but something that's true and very valuable. If they were going to leave you for any amount of information you were going to share with them, they were not your friend to begin with. That's just calling people that you don't need in your life anyway. And that might be heartbreaking, and it may cause some pain because these may be people that you've been friends with, you thought friends with for a long, long time, but they were just conveniences. And so I know that some of this is hard to hear, but I think it's something that needs to be said. Some of us are putting so much energy into living imaginary lives that we don't give people the opportunity to know the real us, the true us, the transparent us. And if that comes with some collateral damage of you losing some friends, then so be it. Because here's what I promise you, and I have lived this, and it's a fact. God will replace them with true people. God will make sure that your circle stays as big, if not bigger, once you finally admit that you are who you are. We'll talk about that a little bit more here in just a minute. The moment that we start pretending, we stop improving. All of our effort goes to managing the image rather than improving the real who you are. And I'm going to tell you who's the worst. Pastors are the worst. I'm going to tell you partly it's your fault. Because you don't want somebody up here who's just a mess all the time and who you read about in the paper has done this or you hear they've done that. You want someone who has seemingly somewhat got it together because they have no right to tell you to get it together if they don't have it somewhat together. You may have grown up differently than I, but I can, and this is one reason partly why I am the way that I am. I'm sure there were, and Mama could probably tell me, but I don't recall many well, we didn't say pastors. You weren't supposed to use that word. It's a whole other thing. Preachers or ministers. We didn't have many of those that I ever remember getting up and just sort of saying, I messed up. Or kind of shared some of the dirt in their life. I don't remember any of that. They always had suits. Nothing wrong with suits. They always, had this exterior of perfection. And to a great degree, if that is exuded from here, then subconsciously at some point you're going to think, well, I've got to have that in my life too. You know that ain't true when I'm here. You know that there's a person here that has absolutely had a train wreck season, had some train wreck seasons in his life. I've been honest about that from day one. And for the longest time, I wore the suits because that's what I was expected to do. I was told to do. For the longest time, I preached a certain way and did things a certain way. And at some point, finally, it just occurred to me that God needs me to be who I am. And I asked Angie not long ago, I said, 10 years ago would you have ever dreamed in your wildest dreams that not only would I, go to church and whatever I wear, but that I'd just have my arms would be covered in tattoo? No. No, I would have never. If you'd have told me that then, I would never. But I finally got to a point that I realized it's time for me to stop being the imaginary me, because that's what people expected of me. I decided that it was time for me to be who I thought God needed me to be. And maybe some folks in this community needed me to be. Because that's a tall order, to have to try to live what sometimes is exuded from a pulpit, wherever it might be. I'm not, this is not critical of guys who wear suits, and this is not critical of that. I'm just saying it's tough. I don't know how many of you have followed the Hillsong Church saga. Anybody? I'm not just talking about the music. I'm talking about the pastor, Carl Lentz. Look him up. You can spend all day long looking up Carl Lentz. Here's a guy who's a pastor of a mega church. It started in Australia, but he was the pastor in New York City. And all that came along with that was the glitz and the fame and the money. He baptized Justin Bieber, and he had all these different celebrities and athletes that came to his church in New York City. And I would never say that this wouldn't happen to me. I'm satisfied some of that got to his head. Because at some point you start believing all the attaboys and the pats on the back that people are giving you. You start believing the news that you are as good as people say you are, and that's dangerous. And even though he had this image, and he was fit, I mean, he really appealed to a younger generation. Wore the cool clothes and had the cool sneakers and the real expensive all this stuff, and he was always on Instagram, and he built a following. And so he has this image that he is portraying on the Instagram world, but behind the scenes there's some things going on that he's not proud of, and eventually he was found out. He had affairs and all this stuff. And now he ain't the preacher there any longer. Eventually that carousel stops. You think that it won't? You think that you can go on living that lie of the imaginary you for decades? Eventually it comes to a quick, halting stop every single time. And it has for him as well. If people don't know, here's a question, rhetorical question, and a question you already know the answer to. If people don't know the real you, then who is it that they like? They don't like you because you're lying about who you are. They like the facade you're putting forward about who you want them to be, to think that you are. They don't really like you because you've not become transparent with them. You've not been honest with them. You've not told them the full truth about your life. I'm not saying your deepest, darkest secrets, but I'm still saying in general that you have not let your guard down around them whatsoever, so they like the you that you want them to like. And again, your fear might be if the real you comes out, they may be in your rearview mirror, never to be seen again. If we aren't careful, we never become authentic. And every relationship that we have, yes, maybe from our marriage all the way down, they're nothing but superficial because it's all about looks. Only the Instagram versions of ourselves. We become, this is a word, pretendaholics. Don't look it up because it's really not a word, but it would just we become pretendaholics. And boy, do we need support groups for this. You got you. She says, come on. It doesn't have to be just necessarily drugs or pretendaholics. And the fact of the matter is, it's probably most people who will sit in those circles, and we're going to talk about that in a minute too, they've all been pretendaholics, because when you're on drugs, you're dealing with addiction, you have to lie to get around those circles of people and trying to keep it all together. Trying to keep it all together. How many times have you had, I can't believe moments when you found out something about somebody that you thought had it all together? I can't believe their marriage is in a mess. All they posted was, I can't believe that they're filing bankruptcy because they were driving these. I can't believe that. Because they were and pretendaholics. Until we can embrace who and what we are, we can never ever get to where we need to be and who we need to be. And the fact of the matter is we need to be known by someone's. I don't mean someone, one word. I mean, we all just need some ones. You probably have a circle of some ones. Maybe a small group of people, maybe a text group, maybe some folks that you every day you talk to, and I have a group or two like this, and I'm going to be honest, I don't want you to see the stuff we talk about. It's not always, it's not vulgar and those kind of things, but I'm just saying, you need to have some people that if you have hair, you can let it down with them. And be you. Now that I'm not saying that to say that should be licensed to be vulgar or to not be Christian-like. But let's be honest, you need people that you can be around where you can be you. So we all need some ones. At least it's a start of us not being a pretendaholic or living an imaginary life. I think Christy would tell you this is true about her group. In every support group that I've ever been a part of, it seemed to be this way as well. We are drawn, once you're able to finally get the courage to go, and that's a big step. There's a lot of folks who every week know, I need to get up, even if I don't go to Hope Church worship, even if I don't go there, I need to show up at 12 and be a part of this group. They know they need to come. They know that they would get better. They know that, but they know it would be work. So it's a big step. But if they can get there in 2.0 at some point, and sit there maybe just one time in this circle, not in a row, we'll talk about it in a minute. If they can sit in that circle and look into the eyes of other people, they don't have to say a word, just listen to the stories that are shared, they will all of a sudden start feeling a kinship to these people. Not by birth, but by circumstance. Not by blood, but maybe by mistakes or bad choices or decisions. We are drawn into groups of people who have the same struggles as we do. And it may not be a struggle. It may be the grief group. Another perfect example of what Melody and her crew do. Maybe it has nothing to do with addiction, but it has to do with folks who have had great, significant, emotional, physical loss in their life. And I know for a fact there are lives that are being and have been changed as a result of being in that group. There are lives that have finally come to the point that they're like, I know I didn't think I could, but I can put one foot in front of another because of the support and an encouragement that they get in those grief groups. We are drawn to be with people of like precious life experience. We are drawn into groups of people who have the same secrets as we do, who have the same struggles as we do, who have the same habits as we do. Commonality is a big word, but commonality is what will help to grow a church. Commonality is what helps to grow restoration recovery groups, grief groups. That's what brings us to these aholics groups, whatever it might be, AA, NACA, whatever it might be. What draws us to those groups, to those circles, to those meeting places? I was at the Daffa House. Some of you know where the Daffa House is. A few months ago with someone who's struggling with alcoholism, and I went as encouragement and support for them. I don't know what I expected, because most of the groups that I had been a part of like that were just 5 or 6 or 10. I went in there, and there were people sitting in the hallways. They were everywhere. And this was like in the middle of the week on like a Tuesday night. I'm like, where are all these people coming from? I bet there was 150 people in this place. Now granted, and I'm not fooling myself, some of those folks are court-ordered. They're there doing their time. They could care less about getting help. They just want to get signed off on, take it to the judge, and move on. We know this is a fact. But there were also people there who were sincerely working the program. In that room were marriages that had been destroyed because of addiction. In that group were finances that had been completely all washed away because eventually the money ran out. In that room were child-parent relationships that had been absolutely severed because of addiction. In that room were some people who didn't have much more than the clothes on their back and the little bit of dignity that they had left. That was it. And right, wrong, or indifferent, their world had become nothing but a living hell. But they had finally decided, even though it might not get their mate back, it may not bring their children back, they may have to start over from $0, $1, they realize if I don't do something, life will never get better. And so they're drawn into this room with this commonality of other folks. And you know what you find in a room of commonality? You begin to feel safety. Some of you have been in these circles. You begin to feel safe. You begin to feel secure. If you have trust issues, you begin to start trusting at least these people because they've walked the same steps that you've walked. You have this commonality, and you may not know them from Tom, Dick, or Harry, Sister Sue, or Betty, but you hearing their experiences, you develop this kinship, and you're like, I trust them. I've lived that life. They just sat there and spilled their guts, bawled their eyes out. They showed their pain, and I know that what they're saying is absolutely true, and they did not hold back one thing. God bless them. I want to be their friend. A common model for churches, and the fact of the matter is this is an accurate first century church model. And it's one that we've sort of tried here, and we do have them. We do have them. We have the support group on Sundays. We have the grief group. We have the women's ministry on Wednesday night. We have the men's ministry on Sunday night. You have youth group. So we do have small groups here at Hope Church. That's all the first century church was. They did not come to a building. I understand that there's temple and synagogue and all of that, but the first century New Testament church was simply folks meeting just together in a home talking about this Jesus. Talking about how they might get their lives better. And so we've asked ourselves the question here at Hope Church, and there's not one church that probably doesn't ask itself that question, is how can we retain people? If we had retained every person that had come in to the doors of this church, we'd have, golly, 1,000+ people. No church is able to do that. My old buddy Paul Rogers used to say, you got folks coming in the front door and some going out the back. It's just the nature of the business. But what I do believe, the best way for us to retain people here at this church, to establish relationship, is for us to not do it here necessarily. Corporate worship is a very difficult place for us to be transparent. Now, I can kind of sometimes be that way because I'm sitting up here blabbering, but you're not able to do it, right? So There are reasons for our corporate worship coming together. We're going to talk about that in just a second as well. But if we really want to develop a relationship in this church, what we will do is we'll spend time together in smaller groups. Because what happens is in smaller groups, you can let your guard down just a little bit. If it's just 3 or 4 or 5 of you, and then you feel more comfortable with sharing who you really are. You might open up just a little bit. There might be some tears shed. There might be some ha-has. And that's where you begin developing relationships, in those smaller, more intimate settings. That's why these types of AA, NA, grief, that's why they work. I know there are times, maybe early on, where Melody thought, I wish we had 50 people every night. But I think as she's come to realize is probably, for the most part, with dealing with those kind of issues, a really, really small group is better. Because people will then open up. Maybe the same here as well. You get too many people, like it was at the Daffa house, it's hard to share for some. I'm not going to talk in front of all these people. But if you just have 3 or 4, you might be willing to open up because of the commonality that you share. It's no wonder why many people, actually relationships begin where people fall in love in recovery groups, in rehab groups, because you're sharing intimate, I'm not talking about sexually intimate, you're sharing intimate details about your life, about your struggle, the pitfalls you've had. And then all of a sudden you hear somebody else sharing those same things. And then what happens as that transparency continues, freedom abounds, and then your heart sometimes follows that. And you're like, wait a minute, we have some common things. I like him, I like her. That's how relationships, now for better or for worse, I'm not saying that it's good or bad, it is what it is. You may be with who you are with because there was some commonality in your life. So you enjoyed the same hobby, you went to the same school, I don't know what it might be, but there was probably some common denominator in your life that began your relationship. Transparency and authenticity are so very powerful. I'll tell you what our small groups are here, I believe that. And if we were to ever develop, and listen, by the way, if any of you would like to just start a small group in your home, we don't meet on Sunday nights. We do meet on Wednesday nights, but there's no rules, no regulations for you to say, hey, I want to have a few folks from Hope Church over to the house. Hey, we're going to have coffee and cookies. Just come up. We're going to sit on our patio, just talk. Just start one. Hey, let me know, and maybe, hey, we're doing this at our house. Love to have whoever wants to come. Start a small group. We'd love for you to do that. These small groups really can be considered as pretend-free zones. Pretend-free zones. Listen to what James, we're going to talk about the Bible a little bit. James, who is a pretty important fella, had a pretty important brother, half-brother. I don't know if you know his name, Mom, Jesus. James, listen to what James says. In James chapter 5. And he asks 3 questions. Is any of you in trouble? Any of you happy? Any of you sick? And this is a context, I believe, of the local church, because it talks about elders or the leadership, about if you're not well physically, go to the leadership of the church. Maybe you would choose for them to anoint you with oil, pray with you, ask God on your behalf to come into your life and help in whatever way. But listen what else he says here. Therefore, verse number 16. Confess your sins to each other. What? Wait a minute. I don't do that. Confess your sins to each other. We've got some each others in here. We probably got some sin. Why would we do that? and pray for each other so that you may be healed. The prayer of a righteous person is so powerful and effective. And I can tell you, we have some righteous people, not perfect, not they made mistakes, but we got some righteous, spiritually minded people in this church. And if you need help, I can direct you to some of them. I may not be that person, depending on the day. But I can direct you to someone. If you need someone to pray with you in a very fervent way. But you know what this verse is assuming? That we are going to be comfortable enough, that we're going to have the courage enough to become transparent enough to say, hey, you, whatever your name may be, please sit down with me. I've got to unburden myself. I got to share this with someone. Here's the interactive part today. I want you to think about it. Can you remember the last time? I'm not talking about with your mates. I'm not talking about with somebody. But can you remember the last time that you were transparent with somebody? That you told somebody something that was just a burden on you. Maybe something that you had only told a very few people. But you felt led through various circumstances to say, look, I know you think I'm this way or that way or the other. I'm about to let you behind the curtain. And I want you to know who the real me is. Last time I did it was in Israel with our leader, Mark Whitehead. Super amazing guy. Lives in Lewis County. I'm going to have him come and speak sometime. You get to know him. You may want to go with him in 2025. He's going back. I forget where we were at. We were at a lot of places. I can tell you it was hot. I remember that much. And he was talking about something, and the group moved on. And this is a little side note. So we had a tribe of Dan every day. I didn't know what the tribe of Dan, 12 tribes, say 12 tribes, say that fast. But apparently the tribe of Dan was always the tribe that followed up from the rear. Anytime the Israelites are going anywhere, and they went lots of places, the tribe of Dan, that tribe was always the rear tribe to make sure that the stragglers kept moving. Well, on our trip every day, we had 32 people. I think that means, is that 8 groups of 4? We had to have a tribe of Dan. Now, my group, and Eric and I and a couple of ladies, we were the tribe of Dan a couple of different times. And one time we were the tribe of Dan, and we were at the Western Wall, Temple Mount, and there was so many people. We're trying to wrangle all these people. And you got people that want to walk around and still take pictures, and they're messing around. Look, we got to go, we got to go, we got to go. So we kept pushing people. So one day I'm at the back, and we finally get everybody up there, and Mark has just done some teaching, and he's kind of laying back too. And I just felt the desire and the need to lay something on him about myself. He had said something in the conversation or in his teaching, and I'm like, you know what? I need to share this with him. And I've not known that dude but a week. But I've been around him already enough to know that I can trust him, that he can be a confidant. And I just felt the need to unburden myself about a particular thing in my life. And he accepted it with grace and very well and appreciated me sharing that with him. When was the last time you did that? Because I'm telling you, even if it's just one person, it is so freeing. Anybody ever done it just can say, yes, Devin's telling the truth. If you will unburden your gut sometimes, it will make you feel better, physically better. Because sometimes it's just like a poison. You just keep pushing it, and you wonder, why do I feel like crap all the time? Why do I not have any energy? I'm not saying that's what it is, but it won't hurt. For you to pull somebody aside and say, I need 30 minutes of your time. Somebody that you trust, somebody's not a blabbermouth, somebody's not going to go and post it, or somebody's not, can you believe what he told? No, you know who that is in your life. And you will be amazed at how much more sleep. Listen to me, because some of you are struggling with it. You will be amazed at how much more sleep you will get that night. How much better your blood pressure is, and maybe how less the anxiety is, because you unburdened yourself with somebody that you could trust. You confessed your sin. Maybe that person would pray with you. And you may just be surprised at how much better you feel after that. Here's what I know. The Bible says that we are a body. This church is a body. Paul would say in Corinthians that you might be an ear, you might be an eye, you might be the little toe, you might be whatever. And I've often thought, well, what does it matter about the little toe? Cut that thing off, and you'll realize, some of you may know have had this experience. Cut that little toe off, and you'll see how important it was to your body. And all of a sudden, that little toe gets injured, you got to cut it off. I'm going to tell you what else hurts. It ain't just the toe, it's your whole body. Everything going to hurt. Everything going to feel bad. When one member hurts, they all do. When one member rejoices, we all do. I hope these little girls, we got one little team here that's been represented. I hope they got a chance to, they're undefeated. They got a chance to win the entire state tournament. You know what we're going to do if they do? We're going to rejoice with them. We're going to be happy and cheer and be ha-ha and wonderful and excited. The flip side of that, if something devastating happens to one of us, we're going to be right there, and we're going to cry. We're going to hug. We're going to take food. We're going to pray. We're going to do whatever we can. When one member hurts or when one member rejoices, we all do. Spiritual development requires us to make ourselves accessible to other Jesus followers. And once we learn that a circle is safe, extreme healing can begin. There is something powerful in life about learning that you are not the only one with regards to blank. There have been a few times in my life that I thought, well, I'm the only one that knows how this feels about whatever. And then once I found another person or two who had gone through the same thing and knew how I felt, I automatically developed a relationship with them. And they became a confidant and trustworthy because we had that commonality, as we saw just a minute ago. Then I confess my sin, I confess my struggles with them. They can understand because maybe they've had to deal with the same thing. Hebrews chapter 10. Hebrews chapter 10. Beginning with verse number 24. Hebrews chapter 10, beginning with verse number 24. And let us consider how we may spur one another. Over 100 times in the New Testament, we hear the phrase or read the phrase one another. Over 100 times. That's a lot of times. One another insinuates and means that it ain't just me. That there's more than just me involved. One another means I got to one another. And that's you. Or that's me. That's us together. So the Hebrew writer says that we may spur one another on toward what? Toward love and toward good deeds. Not toward the negative stuff. Toward love and toward things that are positive and good and encouraging and fruitful. How do we do that, Hebrew writer? Verse number 25. Let us not give up. It's a conscious choice. Let us not give up meeting together. And I believe, I may be wrong, please feel free to call me on it. But I believe the Hebrew writer is talking about the context of corporate worship. Now this verse was used in my growing up years, in my early pastoral years, to beat people upside the head with. Because you wasn't coming to church. Because you wasn't there on Sunday. You wasn't there on Sunday night. You wasn't there on Wednesday. You wasn't there for the potluck. You wasn't there for the gospel meeting. I just beat people up. I will never forget, as long as I live, I will not forget it. We were at the Flat Rock Church of Christ. I was young, but I was full of vim and vigor. I had all the answers. And we had a gospel meeting. You know what those are? It's it's an old thing, but anyway, gospel meeting. It's where you have to go to church Sunday through Wednesday and whatever. Well, we had a gospel meeting, and guess what? Very few people showed up to the gospel meeting. So the following Sunday, I blasted them. I know, Devin, I can't believe you. I did. Different Devin. Both barrels. I let them have it. This is your church. I can't believe you didn't show up. I was here every night. Y'all should have been here every night. Y'all was out doing stuff, having a big time. I guess fishing was more important. I guess the yard couldn't wait to be mowed. Boy, I let them have it. And guess what? Boy, I shamed them. I bet 50 people came forward and sat on these front 2 rows. And I prayed for them sinners. Because they had not been in church like they were supposed to have been. I don't know that was the right thing to do. But the new Devin does still believe. Let me finish reading it. Let us not give up meeting together as the habit of some is doing, but let's encourage one another, all the more as you see the day approaching. The day, capital D. Now, someone told me just not long ago, there's someone who believes that the day, whether you believe in the rapture, you believe the end of the world, new heaven, new earth, however you believe that's all going to happen, this person believes this is going to happen in our lifetime, that we're within just a few years of that happening. I can't answer that. I don't know. The Bible says even Jesus doesn't know. But you have a right to your opinion. But as we see that day approaching, the Hebrew writer says we should encourage each other to be together. Now, I'm going to tell you what happened with COVID. And you can have your own opinion about COVID. I have mine, where it came from, how it started, what the manipulation was behind it, all that. Was it real? Was it not? I'm not going to discuss any of that. But what I'm going to tell you is that COVID certainly disrupted worship. And it disrupted churches. Now, and those of you who are watching specifically, I think you know me well enough to know that I'm not a bad guy. I don't try to belittle or make anybody feel bad for circumstances. But I will say this. Let me read it so I can say it correctly, because I'll mess it up. Where's it at? Because I'm jumping on down. Transformation. That ain't the right. Oh, I got it. Okay. Wait a minute. I got to get to the next slide. I'm jumping in. I know I got to hurry. He says for us to not giving up meeting together. You cannot follow Jesus by yourself. It has to be a community effort. That's just a fact. Now, I understand. Well, what if you're in the jungle? But you're not in the jungle, okay? Got to worry about them. You ain't in a jungle by yourself. People like to use all these different, it might be. Maybe there's some dude by himself in Africa, and he can't find somebody to follow Jesus with him. Jesus will work that out, but you ain't him. You got people around you. And so, there is what someone has compiled, and they call it the community. Boy, good job, Ruby. Community ABCs. By the way, Ruby's sitting in for the Pierces, so appreciate Ruby. Community ABCs. There's accountability, there's belonging, and there's care. This is the 3 things. At least these are the 3 things, and there's more. But this is what you receive when you do what you're doing right now. I'm going to tell you, full transparency, because I know me. And God loved this woman, and God loved that woman, and God loved my children for having to be dragged along this journey with me. Part of the reason why I have to be a pastor or doing what, I have to be accountable, because if I'm not accountable to you, I know me too well to know that I wouldn't be here as often as I should be. I know me well enough to know that I might make some really, really bad decisions if I didn't realize or think that, you know what, those people would be super disappointed in me. I'm as honest as I can possibly be. I think about you guys all the time. when the devil gets in my head, I'm like, I can't do any of that. If I do, those people will be devastated. And that may be putting me up. Devastated may be a harsh word, but you've come to expect more from me. And so I've got to be accountable to you. And maybe some of you show up because you know that somebody's going to say in a couple of Sundays, if you're going to hear, hey, where was you at? It's wonderful to be a place of belonging. This is a place of belonging. I'm sorry, this is going to take a little bit longer. But Fish Camp will be open, Homestead will be open. They're not going nowhere. Mexican, Pizza Hut, who am I leaving out? Sonic, the grocery store. They're not going to run out of food, so just be patient with me here. This morning, and I listened to a sermon of a guy who I know was wearing a suit. Nothing wrong with suits, by the way. Please, I need to shut up and stop saying that because it's not. I have a suit. No, I wear it at weddings and funerals, but hey, knock yourself out. I did it for 30 years. I did my time. But talked about how worship had to be perfect. That's exactly what he said. And here is someone who would tell you the Old Testament is dead, done away with, should never follow, but then goes to the Old Testament and explain how all these things should happen within worship. And essentially said that if you don't do it perfectly, if you don't worship perfect, this is what they said, if you don't worship perfectly, then you are lost. That's not the God that I worship because he does not expect me to do anything perfectly. I can't. It's impossible. It can't be done. You cannot recreate the first century church perfectly. It's not possible. Why? Because you ain't in the first century. You're not in the Middle East. You're not dealing with all the issues that they were dealing with. Let's remember, the Bible was written for us, not to us. Think about that. Now, some of you may have a little bit of an issue with that, but it's true. There is not one letter. When he wrote to the Hebrews, he wrote to Timothy, he wrote to Thessalonica, he wrote to the Colossians, he wrote to the Galatians. That ain't you. We are reading their mail. We are reading letters directed to them. Now, can some of that apply to us in modern day? Absolutely, yes. And we have to somehow try to figure out how to differentiate what is written to them culturally and what is written to us for all time. We have tried to create here a family of accountability, a family of belonging, and we want you to feel like we care because we do. This is what I was getting at. Content consumption is no substitute for community. There's no doubt in my mind that some folks, because of maybe COVID, well, let's blame COVID, just simply got out of the habit of coming. And look, I'm not denying, some of you drove several miles to get here. It would have been a lot easier for you to stay home and watch, and that's fine. But I do believe that you miss out on a great deal by not being here. It's not a salvational issue. You're not going to hell because of it. I'm simply saying that this accountability, the belonging, and the care, you can't receive that being at home. It's very, very difficult. You can't get a hug from these folks being at home. You can't take communion with like precious faith and brothers and sisters at home. Again, you people at home, I love you. Please continue watching. But there are some things you just can't get. It's a fact. Unless you are here. The New Testament is just one another. Galatians chapter 6, verses 1 through 2. We're about done. Did I have that verse? I don't know. Galatians chapter 6. Yeah, did? Yeah. Essentially, Paul says that we are to carry each other's burdens. And in this way, you fulfill the law of Christ. Well, how can I carry your burden if I don't know what it is? What's it going to require? It's going to require you to confess it to me, to someone that you love, to someone that's a confidant. And give them the opportunity. And it is an opportunity, it is an honor, it is a privilege. When somebody opens up, let me explain this to you just real quick. My therapist buddy told me years ago, and this may take some work for some of you. It did for me. He says you say a lot non-verbally with your eyes and your mouth. And the one thing that was so hard for me to do, and I was reminded of it many, many times, when I start getting worked up, my eyes get bigger. And boy, I am told real quick, your eyes, stop it. And so I've got to almost look like I'm high. You know, I've got to just... And there's been a couple, that's beside, I've got to look like I'm high. You know, just don't open your eyes. But he says, if someone is coming to you and they trust you enough, see, y'all ain't even thinking about food right now, are you? If somebody trusts you enough to unburden their soul to you, don't act surprised when they tell you whatever they tell you. And just brace yourself. It may be, oh, dear Lord, I can't believe what they just said. But you got to, okay. Is that it? Nothing God can't handle. I love you. We're going to walk through this together. It's going to be all right. Let me help carry your burden. As a church, we are here for everyone to get underneath and help to shoulder whatever load that you may have. That is our job. That is our duty. That is our obligation. That is our privilege. That is our honor. For you to allow us into your lives. Stories of transformation always involve other people. No one can fix theirself by theirself. Transformation does not happen in rows. Just make sure you're paying attention. In case y'all didn't know, just so y'all are in on the loop, when I do this, that means somebody comes in place. I'm just so y'all didn't know. Isn't it amazing how this technology works? I shut my Bible, either Rachel or so here they are. So at any point in the future, because there has been a couple of times, if y'all see me do this, say, hey, whoever's supposed to be up there, y'all get up there because he shut his Bible. In most accountability groups, in most addiction groups, whatever it might be, you'll notice, and they do it here, it's a circle. You will learn more when you sit and look in someone's eyes rather than the back of their head. Most addiction groups, none that I'm aware of, ever have rows. Unless it's just physically impossible to move them. But generally it's going to be in a circle. And when you're able to sit and watch and listen and see the tears or see the smile, it'll make all the difference in the world. And it just might encourage you to develop the courage to say, I need to say something. And I bet that in the group on Sunday morning, I bet in the grief group, there have been some breakthrough moments where somebody had been sitting there very quietly, maybe hadn't been saying anything, but they finally got to a point that they said, I would like to say something. And they start. And they go. And they keep going. And they puke. And they puke. Not physically, verbally, and maybe physically too. Sometimes it just, you got to do what you got. And they get better. Last Sunday was an amazing Sunday at Hope Church, and we've had several of these. And what began with a little girl to come forward, say that she wanted to give her life to Christ, ended up with a total of 6. We got some of them here today. Here and there. And it was an exciting day. I cannot begin to tell you what it means to me for us to do this in the river. I know that it looks dirty. Probably is. Cows upstream. Toddy's been cows. We know how this works. But there's a phrase, and you'd think I'm 53 years old, and I don't know why it didn't occur to me before, but when Eric and I baptized each other in the Jordan River, someone said, when you baptize in moving water, you're doing it in living water. It's not a pond. Oh, stinky, water not moving, green stuff on the top pond. Nothing wrong with the baptistry, but a baptistry, you know what it requires? My brother does it to me. It's got to be cleaned every now and then. Why? Because that water ain't moving. Some of you have had to have cleaned baptistries before, because you just, if it sits there long enough, and there's a lot of baptistries around here that sit for a long time, by the way. We go down here. I can't help myself. I'm sorry. Sometimes I know I shouldn't do that. We go, and I told him Sunday, I said, this is living water. And the beauty of that symbolically to me is the Duck River is flowing. It's moving. And when we dropped those 6 people into that water, immersed all the way under, and brought them all the way back up, those sins, in my mind, just visually is how I work, those sins fall off, and guess what? They end up in the Tennessee River. That's why y'all ain't catching fish, because all them sins are down there in the Tennessee River and killing all them fish. But they're just washing on down, washing away. And it's a beautiful moment. And I'm honored to be a part of it. I'm ready to do it anytime. Ask these 6 folks, they'll tell you. I'm sorry, I'll owe you 10 minutes next Sunday. You're probably not going to get it. I just love being with you so much. And you're so attentive. And you at least act like you're interested. You pay attention. And I'm so thankful to be on this journey with you all. And you watching. And I just hope and pray that we continue this journey together. Be the real you. Make it a point maybe this week to start working on, let's stop this imaginary business. I'm not saying don't post funny stuff, whatever. At least find one person. I'm not telling you got to go to a group. That's a big step. Find one person that you can confide in and say, I got to share some stuff with you. And you will be amazed at how what unburdening yourself, how it will make you feel. God is good all the time. He loves you and He cares for you. And He wants you to be the real you.
If you all will bow with me or look up, however you pray. Father, I just pray that as a church, we can be transparent this week. We can be our true selves. We can be who you created us to be. And Father, if we're that person that someone chooses to trust and confide in, let us be a reflection of you. Jesus, we love you and we need you. The children next door are learning out being fishers of men. Lord, just let us be fishers of men in your name and in your glory. Amen.